im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima, dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati, osim onoga ko ima žig ili ime zvijeri ili broj imena njezina.
Pozdrav, dragi narode, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Slobodni. Moj današnji gost se zove gospodin Steven Eugen Kuhn. On je geopolitički analitičar, iskusan i bivši vojni veteran i ono što ćete od danas od njega čuti je ono što me motiviralo da ga pozovem. Naime, njegov pogled na globalne svjetska kretanja, događaje, na Europsku uniju, na ratove koje traju je vrlo zanimljiv, vrlo specifičan i on ga jasno zna objasniti i prezentirati. I zato sam ga i doveo danas k vama da to i učini. Hello, Steven. Welcome to our show in Croatia.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Can you say just a few words about your background?
Yes, I'm an American. I joined the military when I was 19, and I left and was served in Europe during the Cold War and then during Iraq. I got out of the military, stayed in Europe, and I've lived and worked and owned businesses and worked in politics in about 10 countries in Europe, currently residing in Turkey.
Great. That's why you're a perfect person to explain us. Look, people usually believe in official narratives. That's because they are part of total propaganda. But your view is different, and that's why I invited you. We will start to cover a few topics, and the one present one, what is very important, is Ukraine-Russian war. How you expect, and first, can you explain us, what is your view, why this war started, why it lasts that long, and what are your expectations where this war is going?
Well, why it started, obviously Russia attacked Ukraine, but the question is why, right? And the question is clear. For 8 years, Putin warned, stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this. The Donbass region, the attacks, the ethnic Russians, kept warning and warning and warning. At the same time, since 1990, warned NATO, stop coming closer, stop coming closer. They did it 9 or 11 times. And then finally, the dam broke and Putin had to, or went in and invaded Ukraine to save, in his words, to save the Ukrainians in the eastern regions. Now, my wife is Ukrainian, comes from Kharkiv or Kharkov, depending if you're Russian or Ukrainian. And her family, we brought out of there when the war started and brought them to Turkey to keep them in safe. Now, it's been going on and on and on because the West, as far as the European Union and the imperialistic, I guess you could say, British Empire, doesn't want it to stop. And there's a reason for that you probably haven't heard yet from me, and that is that the one thing that the UK and Europe is terrified of is if America and Russia work together, right? If they work together, there's no need for Europe or the UK anymore, is there? So that's one big issue. And this meeting in Alaska on Friday with Putin and Trump alone is not just about the peace deal in Ukraine. It's actually about the Antarctic and all of the rare minerals up there and all the mining and all the oil and all the gas. And if they can come to an agreement, this could change world politics, geopolitics completely, making the European unelected officials and puppets that we would call leaders of the European Union irrelevant, which they already are. They just don't know it yet. So how long is it going to last? We hear different versions. For instance, NATO even said, even if you have peace in Ukraine, we're still sending weapons. Right? So they do not want us to end. They want to keep making money. They want to keep holding control. And the West is pretty much sick of it as far as the American people go. When I speak of countries, I speak of the people. When I speak of governments, I speak only of those people in the governments. So we make that differentiation. So how long is it going to go? Let's hope that it's going to end soon. Even if they do a peace deal, it's going to take a couple months to wind things down, and then you'll have rogue outbursts. If not, Zelensky and the European Union will push buttons to try to get more conflict going to keep their war machine rolling. So, I'm not a specialist in this, but from everyone I've spoken to who is a specialist, they think the stability is coming quite soon.
When you say puppets from European Union, that means somebody is behind them. What do you think? Who it is? Who is pulling the strings?
Well, first of all, let's define puppet. So let's just give an example. Ursula von der Leyen was a defense minister in Germany. I think she was a teacher or something before that. She was found basically guilty for fraud, backroom deals, and manipulation of contracts. Instead of putting her in jail or putting her in front of a court, they sent her to the European Union, made her the president, and now she does whatever they say. So who are they? It's the globalists. It's if you want to call them the globalists, it's the big corporations. It's the military industrial complex. And these are all people that profit greatly from division, from war. Now, one thing you can't forget is rebuilding is more profitable than war, but you have to have something to rebuild first. So they want to destroy everything to rebuild it under their new premise, under their control. And it sounds like conspiracy theory. But if you pan out and you look at the real picture, that's exactly what's happening with illegal immigration, with the wars everywhere, with the conflicts everywhere, with all of the new laws, all of the censoring laws that you see in Europe and the UK, people putting in jail, 2,000 people a month going to jail for Facebook posts or social media posts. This is all happening in front of us. And we are the frogs in the water that don't realize the water is starting to boil. And so we have to watch out what's going on and take action. And the only action we can take is in our world. I can't change what Putin does. I can't change what Zelensky does. It doesn't help anyone if I go on social media and cry and complain and scream. The only thing that can help is in my world, with my access to the people that I know. To make a difference, I have to say things that make a difference. I have to wake people up and explain to people without emotion what's actually going on. This way, they can come to their own conclusions, open their eyes and see what's going on, take action in their own world.
That means this kind of shows can help people to become aware what is happening and then don't comply. That means that you, as others, are also saying that war could be avoided already 3 years ago, and also it could be stopped because there was an offer to sign the agreement, peaceful agreement, but they didn't because last time I heard that Johnson was pushed to continue with this war. Now, in the meantime, even Macron was pushing. What do you think about this?
Yeah, Boris Johnson came in right before Zelensky was going to sign with Putin and said, you better not sign it. And he didn't sign it. And then, of course, you had Zelensky go to the White House. And before he went to the White House, he met with European leaders, and then he met with Democratic leaders in the U.S., and then he went into the Oval Office and was disrespectful to President Trump. Now, whether or not you like President Trump, one thing you don't do is go into someone's living room on international TV and insult them. It's just, you're going to lose one way or the other. So that was a dead deal as well. And that's what the European Union leadership and the Democrats wanted, because as long as there's conflict, they can try to make Trump look bad. He can't move forward and he can't stop what's going on. But, a lot of people say, he said he would stop this war, in a day. Well, that obviously didn't happen. But what he did do, and what most people forget, is that, and they're not paying attention to, is that in the first 200 days of his tenure, he worked with Armenia and Azerbaijan. That was a 35-year war. It ended. Cambodia and Thailand, peace. Rwanda, Congo talks. He took care of that too. India and Pakistan dialogue, and then Serbia and Kosovo breakthrough. Trump did all that, but you don't hear anything about that. You hear about, war, what makes him look bad and what makes it hard. And I'm telling you, foundation of America, 70-80% of Americans, they see through it, but they feel powerless because we're slaves to debt. We're slaves to having to work to pay our bills, our mortgage, our phone bill, our car bill, our auto loan, all these things. So most people can't and won't speak up because they're scared to lose everything. But even that's ending. There's more and more people taking risks like me going out there and speaking about it, because if we don't, who will? And before we realize it, that water will be boiling and we will be cooked.
Yeah. Well, I had also some interviews, and one of my guests told me that behind starting of this war, there was a deep state from United States, especially from Democratic Party, and their goal was to destroy exactly European economy because they want to get rid of Europe in a global competition.
Well, you hear about that with the mass immigration. You hear about that's what they want to do, is they basically want to break down this. People ask themselves, okay, so they're sending illegal immigrants into Ireland, into UK, into Germany, Austria, and they're completely annihilating the economy. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? How can they make money if that's what they're doing? Well, they want to destroy it and rebuild it under their own way. Tighter surveillance is to keep you safe, right? Limited travel to keep you safe. All these things will be the new world order that everyone talks about, but they have to destroy the old world order first in order to do so. So yes, absolutely, it's part of it. It wasn't just the Democrats, by the way, and it wasn't just a delegation that went into Ukraine. They also went into Hungary. I was there. I saw it happen. I worked with the Hungarian government when let's say Hillary Clinton and co. went into Hungary to try to unseat a sitting Prime Minister, Viktor Orban. And they reached out to me, asked if I could help them. stop it, because they had taken over all social media, all media, and they couldn't get through. So this is happening everywhere. And anyone who thinks that, this is all conspiracy, they really need to take a look at how can things happen the way they happen in Romania, right? In Romania, the same thing with their elected official, with the potential president that they elected, that suddenly Russian collusion, just like they did with Trump. And as long as Russia is painted as the bad guy, they can use him always as an excuse to say it's not legitimate. And that's why it's so important to keep this war going, because without a bad guy, there's no reason to fight.
Yes, I know the case of Romania because I had a guest there, and also I met Mr. George Simeoni. I was in inauguration of Karol Nawrocki in Poland, and I was invited by George Simeoni. He told me what was happening there. And I understand the same thing that you said in Hungary. There is one important question for Croatia. They are frightening us that Hungary has some aspiration on Croatian soil. Is it true?
No. No. Hungary, first of all, has no army. Right? They have like 15 guys on a rifle. It isn't, they're not there to take over anyone. Hungary, if anything, would want to save the Ukrainian or the Hungarians in Ukraine that are being abused, if you will. But besides that, from everything that I know, and I do know a lot, and I know a lot of people in the government, and I know people who work even in the UN and other locations, no one's ever mentioned a single word about that, ever.
That's good news, because I know lots of people are telling us that even Serbia and Hungary has some aspiration, and also they are frightening us that new war will start here because we have very unstable political situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we are their neighbors, and there's the Croats there, and they are telling us that they will start a new crisis here, and that's why, just for example, 15, 20 days ago, from day where we are recording this, we took a loan of 1.86 billion euros to buy a weapon. That means we increase our debt just to buy a weapon, and nobody is taking any critics, because everybody accepting, because they are afraid, they want to tell us that we are threatening from all our neighbors.
Well, you just answered your own question. They basically created a narrative, and then they created the solution to that narrative. That's how it works. And you said it yourself in the beginning. Everything you hear in the news is meant to sway your opinion, to navigate you through a path that they want you to walk. So they're going to attack. Got to buy weapons. Let's spend more money and buy weapons. Who wants that? If you look at the Agenda 2030, the European Union will and wants to go to war with Russia by 2030. We know that. That's a plan. That's a done plan. And who's going to be hit? You think it's going to be Europe that's fighting? You think it's going to be Western Europe, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, UK? You think the UK might fight, but France, you think they're going to fight? No, it will be the buffer nations. The buffer nations. That'll be the Balkans, and that'll be the Slavic countries. That's where the war will be. If there's a war, it will be there if there's a war. But it's not going to be, Serbia and Kosovo. It's not going to be, it'll be East versus West, and you are in the middle, and that's where the battle's going to be. It's horrible. It's horrible. They don't care about these nations. They don't care about these nations.
This is one very important thing you need to explain to our audience. I have to say that I have very similar opinion about this, but you have to explain why they don't care at all about Slavic countries, and we can say even ex-communist countries, because we were ex-communists. That's how we recognize this communist pattern, what they are trying to implement in Europe. We'll discuss about this later. Why do you think they don't care about us?
It isn't so much you as people. It isn't so much you. It's the proximity. It's like, okay, you're between us and Russia. We want that place. We want to have power over Russia. Eurasia is a rich environment. You have lithium in Serbia. You have so many rich areas, rich fields of different minerals and resources. So it isn't so much the people. It's just, well, the nations, they don't have much power over the West or over Russia. They're sort of caught in the middle. So, hey, let's use them as cannon fodder. And this is not something I'm making up. This is literally something that the Europeans have planned. It's the Agenda 2030. Their will is to go to war with Russia by 2030. And this is, Martin Armstrong can confirm that. I watch his show a lot. I know you interview him and you're a friend of his. So he can confirm that as well, that this is their plan. And unfortunately, the buffer zone in between East and West is the Balkans and the Slavic countries.
Yeah, I recommend everybody to look to my show with Mr. Martin Armstrong because he explained everything from economic side of view. But let's continue. What Europe is planning? You mentioned some very important things like this law new for censorship. You said also that every day lots of people going to jail because of just Facebook posts. What do you mean by this? What is happening with this free speech in Europe?
Well, Europe and the UK specifically is they are anything critical of the government, anything that's putting down specific, politicians or the system itself, that can be deemed as hate speech. And hate speech, that can put you in jail for that. In the UK, there was 30,000 people put in jail last year for social media posts. And people say, well, they do it in Russia too. Yeah, 300 people in Russia last year put in jail for Facebook posts or for social media posts against the 30,000 free people in the UK. Germany is really ramping it up. They passed a new one now that's even more strict in the European Union specifically about politicians. If you speak badly about von der Leyen, which I do, I could probably go get arrested and go to court and maybe be put in jail for that. And they're doing this to stop dissent. They don't want people waking up. They don't want people to band together. Because look, there are billions more of us than there are of them. And if anything, if the world taught us anything, it was when East Germany collapsed, when people flooded the border and the guards, no matter how many there are, could not stop these people from leaving, right? You can only shoot so many people. You can only stop so many people with your small army. You can only stop so many people with your blocking of their way out. Because if we actually come together and quit arguing about the stupidest things and realize we're so many more than them, we can just walk out. Right? But the news media, the press, social media, algorithms, they train you to look for labels and hate those labels. Just like you said, Serbia, Kosovo, Croatia, Montenegro, they're always, hey, well, you guys and this back in the Balkans war, and they're always arguing with each other. They want that. Stop. We need to stop that. We need to come together. We need to stop looking for things that make us different and start looking for things that unify us that we have alike. That is where the true power lies. Without lifting a weapon, we can win.
You want to say that we need to look in our real enemy, and the real enemy are globalists, and all of them, they want to conquer us and to control us in a digital prison. For example, now European Union is just trying to implement a central bank digital currency, and it will start in October this year. This will be one chance to control our finances, and that's why we can maybe look to them. Maybe they are our danger enemy who wants to control us.
We can put names all day long, but let's just call them the globalists, because you have the corporate world, you have the industrial, the military industrial complex. You have other issues behind each country. It's profits from all the way down. Remember, this entire system is built by people who profit. It isn't just those at the top. Let's look at a typical day. You have the globalists, as you wish. Then you have the system underneath it. Let's say the corporations who have contracts with the government. Then you have underneath that, you have the employees of that corporation. Then you have the families that profit, right, their livelihood from that corporation. Do you think they're going to stand up and lose their job? No, they're not. And they know this. The globalists know this, which is why people going down this waterfall cascade of people who profit, and I don't mean profit in a bad way, I mean their livelihood, it's all completely embalmed in this globalist agenda. So if I'm an employee, let's say I'm a data analyst working for Raytheon, right? I'm just a nobody making $40,000 a year. Well, I work for Raytheon. Raytheon works for the government. The government works for the globalists. The globalists deliver all the weapons, right? If I speak out, I'm losing my job. I lose my mortgage, my house, my car, my family, So we are, in a sense, fighting an organization of the unwilling. Because I know people that work as police, I know people that work in government that do not like what's going on, but they will never speak out because they have everything to lose. That's what we're fighting.
Yes, I understand. If you speak, you lose your job. But if you are silenced, then you lose your freedom. And you need to decide in the future, if you don't have a freedom, can you have your job?
But that's not tangible for people. Right now, they have to pay their rent this month. That's how people think. We've been taught in this world, instant gratification, fix what's now. I got to make money this month. I have to go on vacation next month. I have to pay my kids' bills next month. Freedom down the road, let's worry about that after I pay the bills. That is the attitude that our society has become to embrace.
Yes, we had huge experience during pandemic. Everybody was acting like this. Everybody was mostly silent, and they were suffering because they didn't want to lose their job.
Right. Exactly what happened. And that was a test.
Okay,
The test.
what do you think? Because I experiencing now that maybe they are a little bit nervous because more and more people are aware what is happening. And now they need to push it harder, faster. And that's why they're pushing this new law for censorship, also to control. They want to now control our messages. They want to screen messages before is encrypted. At the same time, central bank digital currency. At the same time, contract with World Health Organization for the future pandemic, and they want to implement new pandemics. We have contract with the United Nations Pact of the Future, where also they're saying about some crisis. They call it even polycrisis. That means a lot crisis at the same time. What do you think? Are they nervous because people are getting aware of what's happening?
Of course they are. They're nervous about it. But here's the thing. Is as long as we're focused on those big parts and the big things that we hear and the things you're talking about, that we cannot change. Nothing will change. Because we cannot change that. We can only change our world. The only influence we have is on our world. And I preach this because it's easy to sit there and complain about Israel, about Russia, about America, about all these things, but you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it because you're not involved. So as long as I'm out there, I'm not here. And here's what matters. This world right here that I live in my world, in your world, that's where we have impact. That's where we have to work. So stop worrying about things that you can't change. Start worrying about the things that you can change to make a difference in your life, then your family's life, then your community's life, then your state's life, then your country's life, and then the world. It's a ripple, right? If we all did that, this world would look completely different. But no, we're too busy listening, being diverted, being, sort of manipulated and propagandized to look out there and say, oh, we need to change the world. You can't change the world. You have to change your world first.
Okay. You mentioned also here in this crisis, Israel, and there is a huge crisis in Gaza now. What is your view on this problem? What lasting already long, but escalated after 7th of October 2023?
I've heard both sides. And what I never speak about is something that I don't have firsthand information on and that I don't have personal knowledge of. And I've spoken to people on both sides. I've spoken to, I flew to Abu Dhabi, spoke to a bunch of people that knew, that had access to that. I spoke to Palestinians. I spoke to Israelis, IDF soldiers, philosophers, politicians, and everyone says something a little bit different, but along the same lines. In the end, the kids got to stop dying. Right? The children and the women, they got to stop dying. That's as simple as that. Well, on both sides, right? Right now, it's a basically a massacre that's going on in Gaza and in the West Bank and other places that no one talks about. So, the question is, how do you attack that? How do you get in there and get that to work? Well, when the powers to be, the globalists to be, are in cahoots with each other, each nation's or whatever, you have to first find a puzzle. Who belongs to which party and who's profiting from who? And if you know things like back, I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago when Saudi Arabia was bombing Yemen with their fighter jets, they were Israeli pilots flying those Saudi Arabian planes. And most people don't know that. So that shows you right there an allegiance that no one really talks about. It came out during the war or during the attacks in Iran that Saudi Arabia was supporting. But most people don't know that. So it's not as clear as everyone thinks it is. But if we boil it down and don't worry about all that geopolitical stuff, because I can't change it anyway, like I said, and I look at Gaza and I look at the children and the women, and people could say, yes, Hamas, they're creating this. Of course they're creating it. Hamas was created by the West. Everyone knows that. But that doesn't stop what's going on right now. What's going on right now is what we have to worry about. And this is my whole point. And whenever I talk about everything, is we got to stop looking in the outside and look at the inside. What's happening right now? How can we stop it? Who gives a shit who's, excuse my French, who cares who's at fault right now? It's about the civilians that are dying every single day, the children that are dying every single day. That needs to stop, period.
Is there any chance that could be stopped?
Of course there's a chance that it could be stopped. People need to put their egos in check. Right? Who's right? Who's wrong? And all this screaming and yelling and labeling and all these things. If I have a label in my mind about you, that's going to make me not like you. Well, get rid of that label. Then I have to take you at face value and actually communicate with you to find out who you are. Right? That's what we need to do. We need to break through this ridiculous game that we're stuck in. So for me, I don't have the answers. But if I look at the facts, there's 3 or 4 humanitarian points, and they're at the very, very, very southern tip of Gaza. That means everyone has to go through the entire country or the Gaza Strip to get to the bottom, to get to the south, to get to the points. And that right there in itself, that's harassment. We can put them along the border. We can put them inside. We can put them closer to each other so that there's a spread out, so there isn't this mass of people going down there. And of course, the IDF soldiers are being reported as shooting into the crowds to keep them in line. And of course, they say they're shooting just to keep them in line, not at them. Sometimes the bullets ricochet and they hit somebody. Well, shouldn't be shooting in the first place. They're there to get food, right? So if, honestly, I'm ex-military. I fought in Iraq. And I know damn well this is one of the most agile and capable armies in the world is the IDF. Put on top of that, United States Special Forces, Navy SEALs, Delta Force. We get 200 guys going there. They could take care of this, I'm pretty sure, in no time. But that would end it then, wouldn't it? And some people don't want this to end. So the question is, who's controlling it, and how can we make them understand it's time to end it? Because peace is not profitable unless you are rebuilding.
That means we cannot expect peace soon, because we have enough places where the war is already there and potential places where war can stop. But you also mentioned during this interview that Donald Trump stopped some of these conflicts.
Yeah.
What do you think that his presidency, is there any chance they can finish all these wars and also stop? Because that was his policy. From the start, he came and said no more wars. He was not fought any war during the first mandate, and now he said he will stop all the wars. What do you think? Is there any chance to do it? Or this industrial complex behind, who is pulling strings, is more stronger than him?
Well, it's not necessarily stronger, but they're better nets. They have a better network because, like I said before, everyone's involved. People do things that they don't want to do because they're involved and because they profit from it, not negatively, but their livelihood depends on it. And if you look at some of these wars, they started during the campaign and then after. So they don't want Trump to be the winner. They don't want anyone to see that as a victory, that of him stopping the wars. So they're going to keep pushing hard to make sure there's conflict. Like I said, burn on one side, build on the other. Burn on one side, build on the other. That's how they make money. That's what they do. On one side, you destroy everything with weapons. On the other side, you rebuild everything up. And then you have long-term investment in real estate and land that you can get for pennies on the dollar, which they did in Ukraine, buying up farmers' land for nothing. It happened in Berlin. When I was living in Berlin, when the wall came down, I was offered an entire apartment building with 7 stories for $7,000. An entire building with the property. That's worth $5 million today. This is what happens after war. People go in, they used to call them the locusts, would go in, buy whole city blocks, and then wait, rebuild and wait. And so, we're not going to get anywhere with arguing. We're not going to get anywhere with pointing fingers. We need to come together. Unity is the only way. That's the one thing that the globalists and the governments are all scared of. Unity. Because we saw it again and again and again.
Yes, that's why we need to go back to Europe. Now, you said unity. Is there any chance that Europe will stay united? I hear lots of voices, and I said, as I told you, I spoke to people who recognize there is a big effort to federalize Europe, and people who are running Europe now, bureaucrats, are exactly puppets. They had some weights from past, and that's why they need to listen now and comply with people who have a real power. What do you think? Where this will bring Europe?
Europe won't last past 2050. That's my opinion. Right now, they're already brooking. Some of the nations already want to break away, and some nations wanting to go in are being forced to go in, even though the people don't want it. So I don't think it can last past 2040, 2050. It's just not feasible. It's not economically feasible either. I mean, people say, "Oh, Europeans are the largest, purchasing bloc on the planet." Yeah, but it's not one nation. So not one nation profits from it. So not the people profit from it. It's just numbers and statistics, which are only used for leverage anyway. So it doesn't mean anything to anybody except for the people in charge. And so when it comes down to the people are going to have it really, really bad to stand up and say no. I'm one of the co-founders of the organization that became the AfD in Germany. And I've been working with the AfD before they were the AfD in 2003, right? Founded in 2014. We moved into the European Parliament and then into the Bundestag. And now the Beatrix von Storch and her husband Sven von Storch, who's the chief strategist, they're my best friends. And I've been working with them since 2003. We've seen it all. We've seen it happen. We've seen it come. We've seen it plateau and spike. We see what's going on. It can't last. It cannot last. And that's why the AfD is gaining so strong in Germany with the regular person, with the regular, Bürger, as they would say in German?
Well, one important thing for Croatia now, because we are fresh in Europe. We came in Europe, become a member of 1st of July 2013. And people still believe that Europe is the same like it was when we were applying. And we applied in 2007. But things have changed. We need to now see, is there any possibility that this new arming of Europe, they call it this, we need to rearm Europe. They even prepare 800 billion euros, new euros, that means inflation will come, to rearm Europe and also to raise on the 5% of GDP for NATO. What do you think? Is there any chance that somebody will bring Croatians in some foreign wars for somebody else?
I don't think it'll be, if anything, it'll be Ukraine or Russia. But I don't think right now there's any wars, like there's no Afghanistan, there's no foreign wars where we're using NATO or we're using allied forces to go into war. So, I'd say I hope not. Croatia is a beautiful country. I have some really good friends over there. I go on vacation there. I go to the islands near Split and have a great time there with some friends. We have entrepreneurs from all over the world that go there, and we travel there once a year and meet really famous entrepreneurs. A great place to be. So I don't know. I can't imagine that happening right now. Again, the only thing I see is by the 2030 agenda from the European Union saying that they will go to war with Russia by 2030. Now, whether that's developing every day a little different because of what Trump's doing with Putin, let's see. Let's see what happens in Alaska. Let's see what comes out.
Well, I'm asking you that because we need to increase this arming in the next 10 years on 5%. That means maybe they have a long-term plan. And now we have to discuss about this and see, is there any reason to go in any kind of force in the future? I'm asking this because we were in the war from 1991 to 1995, and we know what this means. I'm one of the war veterans. That's why I'm asking.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, as you know, I worked with the Croatian Parliament back a few years ago, and with the veterans. So it was a horrible war. And what struck me was something that I never thought of until I met you guys, and that was that one day you were neighbors, friends. The next day you're shooting at each other, and then 5 years later it's over and you're neighbors again. I don't think people in the world realize how difficult. It wasn't just the war; it was the mix of cultures that were beside each other that were suddenly enemies, and then friends, and then enemies. It was something that I could barely even fathom. So it was a great learning experience for me to be there. And then I brought some British over, some Danish over as well, some veterans to try to help the veterans there. But I don't have the answer to that. I don't want to speculate, but all I got to say is this: smaller countries get used. Smaller countries get used, they get abused, they get pumped up and pushed out. It's like a pump and dump, and they say in business, in the stock market, you pump them up and then you dump all the stocks to take your money out and you leave the shell. Unfortunately, that's what happens to smaller countries in the world. It's not just Europe, it's all over the world. They get used and abused by the powers to be. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Croatia needs to stay strong. It's a proud people, beautiful country. I don't know. I just really hope that it doesn't come to that.
Let's imagine that you are an advisor from our prime minister or president. What would you advise for the close and longer future from the geopolitical side of you?
Oh, man, now you're going to get me in trouble. I would say it depends on the prime minister if they're long thinker or a short-term thinker, because there's always elections, right? 6 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever it is.
Okay, for sure they are short-term thinkers, but let's see. Yeah. We need to think short-term and long-term.
Okay. Well, long-term, I would ally myself with a stronger party than the European Union, put it that way. Yeah, a stronger party that has maybe tougher lines of cohesion, but also has a record of not taking any flack or any problems from European Union. And that would only leave two countries. So take your pick.
Yeah. Well, we are split here. There is a people who thinks that, East and West, and we are here, divided now because we are aware what really coming from the West and what is not good. And also we are afraid what is coming from East because we had a bad experience with East. Of course. That is the reason why I'm asking you, what would you do? Stay neutral or get connected with some stronger allies?
You have to get connected because you can't stay neutral because it's too small. You're too small. You're not strong enough to fight against the big forces to be. So you need to have alliances. Again, this Alaska discussion is apparently not just about Ukraine. It's about coming together as, economic partners, the U.S. and Russia. And if that happens, that would make the choice much easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, Steven, thank you for your analysis. I strongly recommend everybody to follow you on Instagram or in TikTok, wherever, because usually you are, of course, you're not mainstream, but you have a huge number of followers, and I see big impact. That's how I came to you, because I see your analysis is from somebody who is out of the picture, who can, without emotion, make analysis and, as you said, talk in favor of people, not in the favor of government and people who are creating narratives. And thank you for your time also, for your knowledge, and I hope we will be in contact in the future, because I see that there will be more things to discuss about in the future.
Be my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evo, dragi narode, donio sam vam jedan pogled zanimljiv. Evo, imate priliku pogledati na Instagramu i na TikToku, gdje sam ja prošao gospodina, slušajući njegove analize s kojima sam se u velikoj mjeri složio. Te analize su dobre, jer primijetili smo danas bilo gdje u javnosti da su već svi zauzeli strane. I kogod zauzme lijevu, desnu stranu, ko kaže da se trebamo približiti više Evropskoj uniji ili se oddajiti od Evropske unije, ili trebamo podržati Rusiju u ovom ratu ili podržati Ukrajinu, ili reći Amerikanci na našoj strani, uglavnom su ljudi svi umješani emotivno. Stoga nisu u stanju objektivno sagledati prvenstveno što je naš osobni cilj kao pojedinca, zatim kao zajednice, a onda i kao države, šire zajednice. Kao naravno sad smo i članovi i Evropske unije. Nego smo emotivno miješani. I kada nam neko spomene Srbiju, odmah se sjetimo trauma koje smo imali 90-ih ili i prije toga. Čak se vraćamo vrlo često u 40. godine i nerešene račune iz tog vremena. Kad neko spomene Ruse, neki kažu pomogli su nam 90-ih, neki ih sad osuđuju jer su navodno bliski sa Srbima, koji su navodno naši neprijatelji, i tako se stalno vrtimo u krug u kome stalno zauzimamo strane. Ja bih htio, naravno, i to je cilj od mojih emisija, da pogledamo stvari sa različitih kutova, jer pogled sa različitih kutova će nam donijeti mogućnost objektivnog sagledavanja što je stvarno naš interes, kao pojedinca, kao narod, što je interes naših susjeda, ali kad kažem susjeda, mislim oni koji stanuju u zgradu do nas, oni koji idu s našom djecom u istu školu, na fakultete, oni koji kupuju iste dućane, te susjede. Da li ti ljudi žele ratovati s bilo kim? Da li je potrebno da ratuju? Da li mogu kvalitetu života povećati bez sukoba? Da li uistinu ono što slušamo svakodnevno kroz medije, kroz kreiranje narativa je istina, ili nas samo pokušavaju nahraniti informacijama koje bude naša emocija kako bi lakše prihvatili njihove ocjene i njihove odluke. A kao što vidite, njihove odluke nisu isključivo njihove, već onih jačih koji imaju interes da narod vodi rat, da narod ima sukobe, da je stalnom strahu, da dolaze pandemije, dolaze klimatske promjene, dolaze krize zbog globalnih promjena. Dakle, sve ono što budi strah u nama i onemogućava nam da analiziramo stvar hladne glave. Prefrontalni korteks nam zablokira, što sam i nekoliko emisija imao i objasnio kako se to događa prilikom širenja straha, i time onda reagiramo umjesto da planiramo kako ćemo napraviti iduće poteze koji su najbolje za nas, za našu djecu, za našu budućnost. Ja se nadam da vam se i današnji gost svidio, da ste mogli pogledati i njegov pogled, njegovo iskustvo, njegov poslovni i životni put, u kome ste mogli vidjeti da postoje ljudi na ovom svijetu koji slično razmišljaju kao mnogi i od vas, a da pritome nisu iz Hrvatske, što je jako važno. Dakle, svijet je povezan puno više nego što mislimo, tako i naša mišljenja su puno bliža nego što stvarno mislimo, pogotovo ako pratimo isključivo medije i ako slušamo isključivo te jednosmjerne propagandne poruke koje nam šalju svakim danom. Hvala vam lijepo na pažnji i uskoro se vidimo u sljedećoj epizodi Slobodni.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svoje voljno, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijer, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. To toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.
Gdje su svi oni koji su nas